Soos genoem gesels ek vanoggend met professor Don Cowan en ons praat oor hierdie 'n baie interessante verskynsel wat in Namibië gesien word. Prof, welcome to Grootplaas.
Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Well, I hope you are the man with the answers. Tell me about this theory. Oh, let's back it up. What is happening? What are people seeing and wondering about?
So, if you travel up through central Namibia, in particular, just inland of the major dune zone, you will find some very, very peculiar ground phenomena. These are the fairy circles. They appear as circular areas with no plants, maybe 3 to 4 meters in diameter, completely circular, surrounded by high grass.
Yeah.
There are many of them. They're spectacular, they're unusual, and for a very long time, they've attracted people's attention, and of course, in the last 50 years, attracted scientific attention to try and understand where they come from, what they are, what causes them.
And obviously now you've got this theory. So enlighten us, please. What is happening? What is causing it?
That's what we're all excited about. So, in fact, there are a whole bunch of theories. The ones I like particularly come from way back. The original Nama tribespeople thought that they were caused by dragons or possibly fairies or some other character, hence the name, I suspect. But since that time, scientists have become involved. And so the different theories, they range very widely across the different mechanisms. There's a very strong German group, people I know well, who think it's all to do with natural processes of plant organization. Or plant self-organization. There's a group who think it might be sand termites, so termites living in the sand, eating the roots of the plants within range of their nest, for example, and if you eat the roots, the plants die, and so you get bare patches.
Yeah.
There are other theories relating to radioactive hotspots, which is very unlikely, in fact, through to toxic chemicals, through to gas leaks. Our theory is different. We are microbiologists, and so our theory is that it's to do with what we call phytopathogenicity. This means that the cause is a microorganism living in the sand, which would probably infect the plant, possibly the plant roots and the plant root hairs, and kill the plants off. And the reason we think that this is a possible theory, not necessarily the theory, is that the nature of fairy circles is not unlike a microbial culture. These fairy circles grow slowly. They start relatively small and they slowly expand as plants around the periphery die year on year. They have a lifespan maybe of 40 or 50 years. And that would be consistent with pathogenic microorganisms living in the soil, slowly expanding their range and killing plants around the margins.
Yeah. So these fairy circles are unique to Namibia and southern Angola. Why is that?
Now that is a very good question to which I don't have an answer.
What's your theory? Why?
Well, in fact, they're not quite unique. They found similar features in Australian deserts. I think that's the only other place they've been identified. It could fit with our theory of pathogenic microorganisms because different habitats select for different organisms. There's another theory which I don't think is the whole answer, but would account for this locality. There's a group here at the University of Pretoria who think it's toxic chemicals from euphorbia plants. And euphorbias, while they're widespread, there are many, many species, and some are very specifically localized to Namibia and southern Angola. I think there is entire possibility that there isn't one single answer. There are actually possibly multiple causes producing the same physical phenomenon. Nobody's proved that yet. We like our theory.
I like it too.
Because it fits with what we do and what we get excited about.
I love having the opportunity to talk to you because I think when it comes to theories about, something that a scientist do research about, because there's so many stuff happening. What's your field of expertise, and what are some of the exciting stuff that you have seen in your career that people might wonder about? What are some of the answers?
Oh, well, yes. The questions are much easier to find than the answers.
Yeah.
But that's science. I'm a microbial ecologist, so I mean, broadly that means I'm interested in microorganisms in the environment.
Yeah.
And this is in a way, quite a new field driven by the developments in the last 20 years of modern molecular biology. So it's an exciting field. And I've worked through my career extensively in desert ecosystems. So my interest focused on desert soils, hence the work that we've been doing for the last 12 to 15 years in the Namibian desert. And the fairy circle interest is just one factor of a much wider program.
Yes.
I've also worked in other deserts and particularly in cold deserts. So the Namib, of course, is a hot desert, very hot sometimes. But I've also worked extensively in Antarctica, which
wow.
is there are some areas around the periphery of the continent which don't have ice covering them, the so-called ice-free areas. And there you can get access to the soil, and the soil there is very dry, just like any desert, but it's also very cold. And so from a microbial point of view, both those habitats are quite extreme, and that means you have a very interesting and to some extent select population of microorganisms that live there, and that's what excites me.
I can imagine. Well, when it comes to your experience, and I'd love to pick your brain on this, according to you, what is the most impactful role that microorganisms play in soil? I mean, it's probably a very big answer, but just if you can break it down to us, it plays such an important role, right?
That is a very, very good question. And I don't think our understanding of the role of microorganisms in soils is complete yet, but they do play very important roles.
Yes.
Possibly the most important would be in their interaction with plants via the root system, the so-called rhizospheric community. And there's increasing evidence that the microorganisms around the roots of plants have dramatic effects on the performance, the growth, productivity of those plants. And of course, this is critical in agriculture.
Absolutely.
Optimizing crop productivity. We don't understand the mechanisms in detail yet, but the evidence is getting stronger and stronger. And one day, not yet, we'll be able to manipulate the soil microbiomes, that's the community, so that we can positively impact the performance of crops. But microorganisms have lots and lots of other really important roles in soil. For example, in some soils, they play a big role in sequestering carbon. And that, of course, has a climate impact effect, reducing atmospheric CO2 levels. In some soils, in many soils, they are very important for fixing nitrogen. And this is part of course, of soil quality and soil enrichment. Nitrogen fixation is critical to plant productivity. They have a big role in degrading so-called xenobiotics, pollutants, for example. Most pollutants degrade in soils slowly, and that's a microbial function. And there are many more, but yes, they're very important. In fact, the soils without microbes, they might still produce plants, but it would be a very different habitat.
And that's one of the things when it comes to farming. I think, I hope people realize, and I'm sure farmers realize that it's a very basic concept, but healthy soil produces healthy crops, and it's such a simple thought, but actually so powerful. Yeah.
There are many different elements to healthy soil. That's one of the complexities. It's not just the chemistry. It's not just the carbon content. The microbial content is actually an important element at all. It's part of it. I mean, at a recent meeting, I heard a very, very interesting fact. Brazil, or the farmers in Brazil, are completely comfortable with the concept of adding microbial preparations to their soil to stimulate soil health and plant productivity. In fact, it seems to be standard technology in that country. I'm not sure it's very widespread in other agricultural areas, but it seems to work. Yes. And it's accepted by farmers. For example, I'm not sure that these products are even available in this country. And we have many different soils in South Africa and particularly arid areas, and maybe their microbial cocktails wouldn't work as well here as they do there. But it's a concept which, fascinatingly, is accepted completely by farmers in one area and maybe in future more areas.
Absolutely. And you can't take away the fact that I think it's a field of study that's got so much potential. And do you think we've reached the end of finding out what the field has discovered or what the potential is?
Not at all, no. We have made a start, but the end, I think, is still a long way away. There are many ends, and maybe you never quite get to the end because science is convoluted and complex, and you can go to ever-increasing depths.
Absolutely.
So, as I said before, we started to understand the role of microorganisms, for example, in plant productivity and crop production, but we don't know all the answers yet. And decade on decade, we will discover more. We'll have better understanding, better control, and I think better products for application. It's an ongoing thing. I'd love to pop back in about 50 years from now.
Oh, absolutely.
And see where the field's got to.
Absolutely. Even me. I just want to come back to this fairy circles. I read that it's got a lifespan of around 40 years. Where in that 40 years do you think we are now?
I think this has to be a continuous process.
Yeah.
In that these fairy circles have to appear, grow slowly, and then fade away. And they'll fade away when there's no longer inhibition within the fairy circle zone and plants start to grow satisfactorily within the open areas. And so it may not be very clear at the start or at the end of the life cycle. But I make the assumption that this is a continuous process, that fairy circles are constantly being born, if you like, living and ultimately dying.
Yes.
And that if you go to any fairy circle in a grassed dune zone in the Namibië, you will be surrounded by fairy circles of different ages. We just don't know what those ages are.
We've got around 1 minute left, and I always like to just take the opportunity because I feel if we can inspire, then let's do it. What is it about your field that excites you the most? If you look back and if you look forward.
Oh, what a complex question.
I know.
It's hard to define what makes me excited by the science, except I know I am excited by the science.
You feel it.
I feel it. It's almost automatic. I mean, I am excited by the concept of understanding the world around us within my particular area of focus. Part of the excitement is that I work on fascinating systems, and to be fair, this job of mine as an academic has taken me all over the world to some of the most wonderful places, and that's part of the excitement. But I guess my fundamental excitement is understanding how things work, what's out there, what they're doing, and what its role is. But every scientist is going to have a different motivator for their excitement.
And I think that's the one thing. What are we here? What are we doing here? And what can we change here? I think that's a question we all ask. Prof, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for your time. And yeah, well done with the theory.
Thank you, Mia. Pleasure.